What's up guys, my name is Andy, and on today's video we're going to add some subframe connectors to my 1966 Mustang. For those of you that are familiar with this car, the chassis stiffness is not that great on these 50-year-old cars, and what we can do is add some subframe connectors and help stiffen it up. And what I'm going to be working with today is a set that comes from CJ Pony Parts, and why I went with this is mostly because it's a bolt-on option, and for somebody like myself that I don't have a shop and my welding skills are not that great, and I have a welder, but this is not something that I want to do with that kind of welder. I'd rather have somebody else do it. But what I can do is I can bolt this in place and then take it to a shop and then get them to permanently weld it. And this is great for you guys that are in a similar situation where you don't have a welder, you don't have access to one. You can bolt this in and that at least get you going. There's no argument that welding these in place is really the better way to go, but again, for guys like us, a bolt-in option is a better option than none. So this unit from CJ Pony Parts, very simple. Let's take a look at the hardware that we got with it. So the included hardware that they gave us is great because it's got all new bolts, and some of you guys are going to have the bolts that go in your rear leaf springs are going to be kind of old and tired, and it's going to be great to have some new hardware. So we've got that set aside. You've got, we'll set those there. You've got this set up for the bolts that are going to go in the end of the front end of the subframe connector. This is going to go on the back end, and this is going to go on the side and the back. The instructions that they give you are really not that great. You guys, if you can make heads or tails of their drawings that they've got here, it really is, it's low effort, and it's really too bad that this company couldn't put together something a little bit clearer to follow. But this is the hardware that we're going to get, and if you look at, so we're going to be drilling some holes in the front frame piece, and that's where these are going to go through. And then for the back here, this is where we're going to put this guy in, and it's going to be pretty simple. The only thing that we're going to have to do is first there is a right and left. See how this is offset? This is going to go in the passenger side, and then the driver's side is just going to be the mirror of that. But on the passenger side, I believe it's right here, the parking brake return spring connects to the frame right through here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to open this section up to make room for that hook of the spring to come through here. But we'll do that when we get there. So we'll do the driver's side bar first because there's no modifications there, and then we'll come over and do the passenger side. Okay, you're gonna wanna get the car up on 4 jack stands, and in this particular case, we don't wanna put the back jack stand on the rear axle. We actually wanna put it on the frame for right now. This is because we need to take the bolt out of this leaf spring, and we don't want the car jacked up on the jack stand, or the rear axle on the jack stand, because then it'll put a different pressure on this than if it's just hanging freely. So we're gonna put it on the frame, and then the other one's on the front frame piece behind over here. So this is the bolt that we're going to take out, and because I had replaced these leaves previously, this is all new hardware, but some of you guys may have original hardware in here, and this is going to be a little bit of a test of patience to get this guy out, because this nut may be, for lack of a better term, welded on there from 50 years of use. So we're going to go ahead and pull this guy out, and just to kind of get an idea of how this is going to sit in here, this is the back end of the bracket, and this hole we're not going to use, and I'll show you why, but this is the hole we're going to use. The new bolt is going to go through there, and this is going to sit, it's going to more or less sit just like that on my car. Notice how close the muffler is to the subframe. It's still fine, it clears, but some of you guys may have a different clearance issue than I do. So this is the back end of it. Let me show you the front end. Okay, the front end of this is going to sit basically just like that in there. You'll notice that this has an angle to it, this piece right here, and so does this. This is angled a little bit, so when you put this in there, I don't know yet if it's going to sit flush. It depends on where the bolt is in the back there, but you get an idea of how this is going to sit in here. And then what we'll do is we'll get this in place, and we'll mark where the holes are going to be, and we'll have to drill a hole to match these for the bolts. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break this bolt loose, and then I'm gonna put a jack underneath the leaf spring back there by the axle, just to take a little bit of load off this so the weight of this is not coming down on me. But I don't wanna completely jack this up and drive this end link into the car. So you're gonna have to find that perfect balance. I think what I got going on here is I think this jack is, since it's the tip of this jack is resting on the leaf spring, I'm not able to drop the leaf spring and get the tension off this bolt. So when you guys put your jacks in here, just make sure you position it far enough forward so you're not resting on the spring, but not too far forward, because you'll interfere with the bracket that has to go right here. All right, the last little bit of the bolt there. There we go. We got this repositioned. That made it a lot easier to pull this bolt out of there. So this bolt is still good, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna reuse this, but you guys may wanna use the new ones in case you got the old ones in here. So now that's in place, we can go ahead and put the subframe in here and kind of test fit it, and we'll put this bolt in and just hold it in place, get it secured, and then we can go up front and drill the holes and mark the holes for drilling this in the front frame section. Okay, we have an issue here. This bolt is, here I'll move this and I'll show you. You know, where the hole is on this bracket and where the hole is there, it's like the bolt is hitting low, like right there. And I don't know if it's because this has been kind of munched up and deformed a little bit, or, I mean, so one of the things about this car is I don't have a hole in the frame for this bolt to just thread inside there. And so I guess we could take this off because we don't need it, because I don't have a hole. This hole is not the one that you're supposed to use. This is separate. But the hole that they're talking about in the instructions where this would thread up inside there, I don't have that hole. And it doesn't talk about drilling a hole. It just talks about threading the bolt in, which there's nothing to thread into. So let me take a look and see what else I can do before I cut that bracket off. All right, don't cut this bracket off. The secret to this is we're just gonna bend it out of the way for right now, because it's just putting the hole, this hole just below that. So if we bend it out of the way, that allows this to slide up, and then I can push it back and I can hit it back in place. And then when we get this thing welded up, it'll weld up nicely to that. But so now that this is, we're kind of good, ready to put this in, I'm gonna just go ahead and brush this off, get that dirt out from behind this bracket, and then we can go ahead and put this bolt in and finish up this end. This is going to take a while. We got to just thread this screw in, and because everything's so tight, we're just going to work our screw all the way to the back, and then we'll put the nut on when we get to the back side. All right, getting that bolt in there, the last little bit is kind of hard to do. When you're coming up to this other side, sometimes the bolt's going to get caught on the edges, so you're just going to have to be patient, maybe drive the bolt through whatever you can, using some leverage or smacking on it. It took a little bit to get this through, but once you get it in there, now we can just put the nut on this, and that'll sink all this back up, and it'll squish everything in place. And then we'll just leave this bracket where it is, and then when we go to weld this thing on, it'll be in a good spot for it to weld, and we'll be good there. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and then we'll move up to the front. Okay, now that we got the back end of that tightened down and secured, when you come to this end, you may need to take a mallet and kind of drive this thing up, just because the way that this thing is shaped, it's kind of a wedge. So drive this up inside there until the bracket just kind of bottoms out, then you can't go any farther. And hopefully your frame isn't mangled up kind of like mine is. Thankfully there's enough material here that I can drill through and get the bolt in, but hopefully you guys won't have the same kind of problem. So we're supposed to do a 30 seconds hole inside here and here, so we'll go ahead and drill those and then get that set up for the bolts to go in. All right, I had to remove the exhaust that was in the way. I couldn't drill holes from this side with that exhaust in the way, so got that out of there, and now we can finish drilling holes through. There's kind of difficult, these holes are a little high, so trying to get a drill up high to do this is difficult, especially on this side, so you just kind of take your time and work your way up through the drill bits is probably the easiest way to do it. Those are on there, that's in place. It's all right, well, I can go to the other side now. All right, same thing as the other side. We're going ahead and pull this bolt out, and then we're going to put a jack underneath the leaf spring just to take some tension off of it, and we'll pull the bolt out and put the bracket in. All right, real quick before we put the bolt in the back piece, I wanted to show you what I had to do to cut out for the parking brake return spring. You see how much, I mean, this bracket came all the way back here and came down, and so I had to I actually cut 4 times trying to get this cut out of there to make enough room so that this spring would clear all this stuff. Thankfully, it's not going to affect the strength of this bracket, particularly when we get it welded in. It'll be fine, but that way they got plenty of room to clear the spring. So now we can go ahead and put the bolt in the back. And just like the other side, I went ahead and bent this bracket down out of the way just so we can kind of get ready for this, because I suspect that we're going to have the same problem. Oh, that went in way easier that time. Fantastic. So for this end, what we're going to do is, when I on the other side, when I was putting the bolt in the back side, this was a really snug fit on the front, on the beam I just did. But this one doesn't fit as well. It's a little looser. So I'm going to use this jack to hold it in place. Because before I could just hit it with a hammer and I'd drive it up inside and it would hold in place. But this time I'm going to use this. You probably should use this anyways, just so it doesn't move on you. And then we'll go ahead and I need to get this out of the way, but then we'll drill the holes and get it ready for the bolts to go in. All right, that's done. Those braces are in place, and on an installation difficulty, maybe give it a 6. I had problems with the one leaf spring bolt, but not the other bolt on the other side. The passenger side bolt came out pretty easy. And then having to notch out on that bracket for the return spring of the parking brake. Again, guys, when you cut that out, don't forget to hit that up with some spray paint so you can protect that steel so it doesn't rust. And then I broke 2 drill bits drilling those holes. I'm sure that was my technique and not something you guys are going to do, but just be careful when you're drilling those holes, because you have to come in at an angle, and that angle is steep enough that you can bind that drill bit and bust it off. So just be careful with that. And then the only other thing that I'm not certain about is where the welds are. They're on the end of the bar, and so if you imagine, if this was the bar and there was a weld right here, what we're going to get in strength in this thing is a bending of that brace, right, of that subframe connector. So if the welds are right here, you can break it on the edge. If the welds went, this way, you got a lot harder. It's gonna be a lot harder to break those welds. So I didn't really pay attention to that when I was buying them, and as I'm installing them, looking where the welds are, we'll just see how it goes. I need to take the car out and see if it does anything. I just got done putting that rear sway bar in not too long ago, and that thing is a great improvement. I know there's a lot of people that are not positive about putting that, they're not sure about putting that rear sway bar in there. It really kind of livens up the end just a little bit. It doesn't, I didn't put it on the stiffer setting so it doesn't, the car doesn't snap on me when I'm going around a corner, but going through some of the twisties and stuff, it is a little more responsive, so I do appreciate that. And I also have stiffer leaves in the back, so that helps a little bit, but hopefully with putting the subframe in there, that'll just help continue to tighten up this chassis and make it a little more fun to drive. So other than that, guys, this is it. This is another easy one, and you guys can definitely do this because of that bolt-in feature. And then I recommend getting them welded in when you get a chance. I'm going to try to take them in and get them welded because they'll just strengthen up those subframe connectors and make them a little better. So if you guys liked the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I appreciate it. Helps my channel out, and we'll see you guys in the next one.